Now, this week's guest is one of my own favourite podcasters. She's a woman who's overcome adversity and channeled it into helping other people. She's also my kind of gal. She's into all things reality television and rom-coms. And yes, she is as lovely as she seems. It is Georgie Crawford.
Hello.
Welcome.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm delighted to be here.
I'm
you got me out
delighted
of
to
the
have
house.
you. I'm delighted to have you. And come here, tell me about all things Good Glow and the marathons and half marathons. What's going on at the moment?
Oh, it's like we've just come off stage at the concert hall. Our show was last Sunday. So we've officially kicked off the Christmas and festive season. So that was amazing. We've got an Alps run half marathon in January. Yeah, we're bringing 50 people to the Swiss Alps with us.
Oh God. So it's a half marathon up a hill.
Up a hill.
Oh,
yeah.
Up a mountain, should I say?
And
Never
back
mind
down
a hill.
again, which is my favourite part. And then we'll go back and do the New York half marathon on Paddy's weekend. So,
did you ever think when you started out as a radio presenter that this would be your life?
No. And I, sometimes I suppose I trusted my life, and that's why this film I think is so relevant. But I suppose I was open to where everything was going to take me, and it's taken me to a brilliant place, and I'm just kind of strapped in and enjoying the journey.
So for those who live under a rock and are unfamiliar with you, you were kind of on the grind, making radio, working really hard. Then you had your first daughter, and then shockingly, were you 32?
Yes.
You were diagnosed with breast cancer, and it kind of turned your life upside down, and I guess gave you a whole new one in some ways, right?
Yeah, it was like a kind of hurricane in my life, and I was caught up in this just unbelievable time where I didn't recognize my life anymore. And more than anything, I was absolutely petrified. I couldn't
just
believe
every day, like in life,
every day during my diagnosis. Like it was so overwhelming to be a young person with a cancer diagnosis. I always say, like, looking in the mirror at my young face, losing my hair, going on that journey. But I suppose I was so supported and held that it got me through it. And when I came out the other side and people were like, I bet you can't wait to go back to normal, go back to normal. And I was like, I don't want to. And it took me somewhere else. And I suppose the biggest gift that it gave me was friendship and connection. Like, look at us, you know, all these years later, what you've done for me, and now coming on your podcast, and I developed all of these amazing friendships with women. And
because you were so vulnerable, and I think people really relate to vulnerability and openness and honesty. And I remember at the time hearing you on the radio, and it was all so raw, and you were my age or younger, and you just had your daughter, and I remember being terrified for you, and then so happy that you were well, and not only well, actually following your heart and your dreams and doing a whole new career, like basically opening up a whole new way of being to other Irish women as well. I just think, like I said in my intro, you used your challenge to help other people. So I'm very admiring of you, Georgie Crawford.
Oh, thank you. And you gave me my first cover.
I did. I loved that cover, and it was for breast cancer awareness. So it was pink. As you know, as you can see in studio, I like pink. But I remember you just looking so luminous on it, and I was delighted too. So
well, thank you for all the support and the things that you do for women as well. It's just a great community to be a part of.
It is. And you mentioned briefly that you've chosen a film that's kind of all about fate. So can you tell us what your movie is?
Yeah, it's Serendipity.
Woo! One of my favourite words. It means, as Kate Beckinsale says in the film, a happy accident, which I don't know, that could be misconstrued, but it basically, it just means that something has come along unexpectedly and fortuitously. Yeah. And I absolutely love that. And when I rewatched this film, I always thought of it as kind of half a Christmas film. And it is half a Christmas film because the beginning is set at Christmas and then none of the rest of it is. Yeah. So it's kind of perfect timing to ease us into December and into the festive period, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a sprinkle of Christmas.
Yeah.
And actually, when I was rewatching this, I was like, oh my God, this is so much of how I think. And I think that's why subconsciously I just said serendipity to you, like, a happy accident. Like, that feels like my life. Yeah. So the sprinkle of Christmas is beautiful. It's set in New York City, which is one of our favourite places.
And the best Christmas plays ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it kind of has a bit of everything,
It does.
which I love.
So looking back at it, right, with my research hat on, so it came out in 2001. It was directed by a man called Peter Chelsom, and he had some rom-com form. He had done Shall We Dance with Richard Gere, and he'd done the Hannah Montana movie. What a guy.
Hello.
Yeah. It had a $28 million budget and it made 78 million. So it was a middling hit, had middling reviews. And it got me thinking, why does it stick in our mind so much as such a great rom-com and something that's really like seminal to me? And I think it's because it's Christmas in New York.
Yeah.
It's very easy to watch. It's very like easily shot. You don't have to really switch your brain on at all. And crucially, it's exactly 90 minutes long.
I was going to say, I think
perfect.
It's so hard to watch films nowadays. I don't know whether I have turned into someone who, like, I don't have the concentration for it. There's too much going on in the world. So I love a little 90-minute rom-com.
Same. And I think all of our attention spans are shot, and I blame our phones. So 90 minutes to me is just ideal. And like, it's actually a selling point on airplanes. Now, they do this obviously so you can, work out how much time you have left, but they have like an under 90-minute section. And I'm always like, yep, I'll watch them. Yes.
Wow.
And speaking of airplanes, your podcast is on Aer Lingus now.
Oh, such an insane moment. We were going to the Chicago Half Marathon and we'd worked really hard to get the good glow on Aer Lingus flights because I was like, there's not enough Irish content.
No, there isn't.
Here.
You're right.
So we got on the flight and do you know it took me 45 minutes to actually go in and have a look
and find it, or you're just too nervous?
No, I was just so in my head about it. I was like, is it going to be there? Is this really happening? And I think it's such an Irish thing. Well, that's what Jamie said. So many people were so happy for me because as Irish people, I think we get how much of a big deal it is to be on an Aer Lingus flight. So yeah, if you've got 90 minutes left of your flight and you want to listen to a podcast, I'm there.
That's amazing. And is it like all of the episodes of Good Glow, or is it like a selection? You had to pick 10. Oh wow, that sounds fun. No, I love that. Like I'm going to Chicago very soon, so I'm going to listen to the Good Glow in the air. So yeah, it is like for me, this film, there's no mobile phones, there's no social media. It's all very kind of lo-fi, and for me, that brings me back to a time when when I first watched it, that just felt simpler. Nowadays, these people could find each other like that. Yes. Whereas back then they had to rely on other methods. So we'll get to all of that. But Serendipity was like, it's kind of a film that's always on film 4 over Christmas. You know what I mean? It's not ever, top of the like best romantic Christmas films, but for me, it's very much there.
Yeah, it's definitely something that every time it's on, I will click in and watch it. Yeah. And I think what's so brilliant about this film is when you watch it back now in the year 2024, there are so many legends in it.
Yes. Oh, we'll get to the casting because it is amazing. It's really, really good. But do you remember the first time you saw it? Did you go to the cinema or?
No, I was definitely with Jamie. So I was like, I didn't see it for years. It was something that I just stumbled across like on Netflix or something. I was like, it wasn't on my radar whatsoever. I was definitely in, probably 2014 maybe.
Because when you're in love, you like to watch a rom-com, don't you?
And you're in so much more on Saturday nights.
That's true also. Okay, because I think I saw it when it came out. I can't remember if I went to the cinema or if I rented it back in the day, because I used to love good Extravision or Chartbusters. They were great. But yeah, it was in the noughties that I saw it, and I remember thinking that Kate Beckinsale had the coolest style ever, whereas now I'm like, oh Jesus Christ.
I know, it was just the scarf, wasn't it? It was just so effortless.
And her hair is so gas in so many scenes. It's just, it's brilliant. So let's talk about the cast. So starring John Cusack, he would have been the big draw. So he's a good Irish American Catholic boy from Chicago. He kind of steadily acted throughout the 80s. He's got bit parts in films like 16 Candles and Stand By Me. So like big films, but he's not the main guy. But his big break was the lead role in the teen rom-com Say Anything. Have you ever seen it?
No.
So it wasn't very big in Ireland, and it didn't make him a big kind of rom-com star, but it's very famous for one scene in which he's wearing a trench coat and he's standing outside his beloved's window holding a boombox over his head. And that's been replicated in so many movies and TV shows over the years. But it's actually not a very good film, and it's very dated.
Okay.
Which a lot, you think, of course, 80s films are dated, but a lot of them aren't. Whereas that one is. But that kind of made him the leading man for a while, and he's had a very eclectic career. Like he's done loads like action films, a few horror films. He's played like an FBI detective in Con Air. Like he's been around, but this was kind of his first big rom-com, and he was cast alongside Kate Beckinsale, who now we mostly know for A, vampire films, and B, being a bit of a ride and being funny on Instagram. Yeah, she's stunning. But before that, she was kind of, her parents were actors, so she was like a theatre and indie movie actress in England, and then she went to the States and she was the love interest in Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
Which was meant to be the next Titanic, but didn't quite get there. I personally love it.
Yeah, no, I'd be more of a Titanic gal myself.
I'm more, but like if I had a film where Ben Affleck and Josh Hartnett were fighting over me, I'd be a very happy girl, and that's 100%. Her in this film. So, and she looks amazing. It's set in the 40s. She's got the victory rolls. She's stunning.
She brought sophistication to Serendipity, didn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Especially because they let her be English as well. They let her be an English girl. So yeah, they're the big stars of the film. But there's an amazing supporting cast. There's Jeremy Piven, who, when researching this, he plays John Cusack's best mate in the film, but they were best mates in real life.
Were they?
They grew up together. And they had a falling out around the time that Piven got really famous in Entourage. And Piven made a bitchy comment like, oh, I would have thought he'd be happy for my success.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're no longer pals.
Okay, because they had great chemistry in the
Brilliant.
film.
Yeah, I remember thinking to myself, these seem like best mates. They are. Or they were. And Cusack is interesting as well because his sister is Joan Cusack, who is the best friend in every rom-com there is. She's in Runaway Bride. Oh, she's actually going to find a list of them because there are so many. But Raising Helen, Working Girl, Confessions of a Shopaholic. And then she's the lead romantic person in School of Rock and In and Out.
Oh.
Have you ever seen In and Out?
In and Out? No, I don't think I have.
It's a film about a teacher that's in the closet and she plays he's unaware that he's gay and she plays his fiancé.
Okay.
Very good
Vicki,
film.
I need to come to your house.
I know, honestly, I'm such a geek about these things. Oh my God, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Rom-com boot camp with Vicki Nataro.
Who needs a retreat?
Exactly. Just come and watch films with me. So yeah, the cast is pretty stellar. The film was kind of, I guess, just developed to be this kind of film that people watch every year. Because if you've sense, you're going to make a Christmas movie or a Christmas song, right? If you're creative, because every year, ka-ching.
Yeah, and this is the sort of, so I'm less of a kind of at Christmas time, the classics.
Right.
Jamie would be like, let's put on, what's the English one?
Love Actually.
Let's put on Love Actually, or let's watch The Holiday. I'm like, I've watched these films so many times.
Yeah.
I want to go into the depths of the catalogue,
right,
and see what else I can come up with this year.
Yeah, because it's such you just have to look at the sheer amount of like Lifetime and Hallmark Christmas movies that are dreadful, but there's one channel on Sky that have them on year round, and people like my mother-in-law will watch them in September.
Yeah,
like people love a Christmassy rom-com or a seasonal rom-com. They love autumn as well. Like autumn's a real time of renewal, so it's it's perfect fodder for a rom-com. But this one cleverly hits the Christmas mark and then kind of retreats from it. Yes. So it's very, very smart. So the film opens with New York at Christmas, Bloomingdale's. You've been to New York, Bloomies is an icon of the Upper East Side. And very cleverly, the Serendipity Cafe is actually around the corner. So they didn't, there's no fooling around here. But they basically reach for the same pair of gloves in the department store on a busy Christmas. And that's actually a throwback to a 1937 Cary Grant film.
Vicki!
But in that film, they both reach for a pair of pajamas, and he gets the top and she gets the bottom. So there's loads of little throwbacks in this to like old Hollywood. But yeah, they both reach for the same pair of gloves. They start flirting immediately because they're both hot and they've got this chemistry. But very quickly it becomes apparent that they both have partners. So he's really like, let's go for a frozen hot chocolate in Serendipity, which is their thing. And she's like, fine, I'll go. Now, my husband had a problem with this straight away.
Okay,
he was
tell us.
Well, he was like, they're both with people. Why would they be going for frozen hot chocolate together? I was like, Joe, we have to suspend disbelief just momentarily.
Yeah, and I did feel like when they were in the cafe having that little chat, they were very comfortable with each other very quickly, weren't they?
Yeah, oh, there's the zing straight away, like the thunderbolt strikes. And Americans are funny like that. They'll be like, oh, we're just dating, like we're not married.
Yes.
I'm still available. There's no ring on my finger. And it's like, okay, that's a strange way to be, but fair enough.
That's New York dating
That's
for
New
you.
York dating.
You know, they
it's like sharks.
Yeah. But the thing is when I saw him sitting there, when the first time she bumped into him, I was like, do I fancy him a bit?
Oh, this is the John Cusack thing.
What is it?
I don't fancy him because he reminds me of someone.
Okay.
And I won't say who, but that is why I don't fancy him. But I can totally see why you would.
You
definitely do. So I can see why people would find him attractive, but to me, it's a no.
Okay.
But for her, you know, he's a decent looking man in his, I think he's meant to be in his 20s. He definitely doesn't look, he's meant to be like 28 when they meet.
Okay.
He definitely doesn't look in his 20s. And he's charming. Like straight away, he's charismatic. He's taller than her. He's kind of stooping down, looking at her.
I was wondering if he was standing on a step.
No, he's quite tall.
Oh,
he is
okay.
quite tall, yeah. And she's quite petite, so it was quite perfect.
Yeah.
But they have that thing from the second that they meet. And then he's like, look, can I get your number? And she's like, oh, no, like I have a boyfriend, that would be wrong. So they both leave. He remembers that he's left his scarf. He goes back to get it and she's there because she's left the gloves. So she's someone who really believes in fate, and she thinks that everything is predestined. She thinks, you know, you can make it, you have free will, you can make a decision here or there, but overall your life is planned out. And he's the exact opposite. So do you believe in fate, Georgie Crawford?
Do you know what? I do. And I believe in sometimes having to go the hard way around to get somewhere. I definitely felt like when I was in my early 20s and I was dating around and things like that, I was like, would I be the type of person that might have to settle in my life?
I've thought that, yeah.
You know, who what if I don't meet the one?
Yeah.
What if somebody comes along and they tick all the boxes, but they don't really set my world on fire?
Yes.
And I think that's what rom-coms gave us, is that the hope that there is somebody that is meant to be for us. And luckily I got there. But yeah, I do certainly believe in soulmates and fate and everything in between.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think there can be loads of obstacles that, like, Joe used to work in Barcode, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how many times he served me in Barcode. How many times did I meet him in Dublin over the years before I actually met him properly?
Wow.
I often think about that and like how different would my life be if I didn't make X decision. So I decided to take a job, which is where I actually met him. Where would my life be if I hadn't taken that job?
I know, and you're such soulmates as well.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Like I'm such a sucker. I believe in it all. And maybe in my 20s I didn't because I hadn't experienced it.
Yes.
Sure, I hadn't experienced the thunderclap. And I think that's why I'm such a romantic and why I might come across as a bit of a cheeseball, because I believe in it all.
Yeah, and that thing, like, when you know, you know. I think I hung on to that for so long. Maybe I will know when I know, and then you do. And then
you met Jamie in work as well.
Yes, yeah.
We both had office romances.
I know, back when they were acceptable.
I know. Well, mine was acceptable because we worked in entirely different departments and floors. Like, he was the IT guy, so that was all right. Yours was like slightly different, but the path of true love.
Yeah, it was. And we were so... Do you know what? Jamie was the first person that came along that was really like me. I always went for people that were
Opposites, yeah.
And I always say, you know, opposites attract and we're so different. But I mean, I think like 4 years in, you're like, okay, this isn't exactly working anymore. So Jamie was the first person that came along that we were quite similar. And it just clicked.
I love it. And now look at you. It's amazing. So yes, our lovers have met. So she has said, right, I believe in fate. If we're meant to meet again, then we will. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you have to give fate a helping hand here. Like, you know, you can't just, he said something to her like, oh yeah, you don't just have the most incredible night of your life with a perfect stranger and leave it all to chance, do you? And she says, okay, fine. I'm going to write you're going to write your number on a $5 bill and we're going to put it into circulation. And sorry, we just had a gasp in the studio there. It's a great line. And then she says, I'm going to write my name and number in this book, which is Love in the Time of Cholera. And I'm going to put it in a secondhand store tomorrow. And that's it. We're leaving it up to chance. So he's like, oh my God, great idea, but it's not enough. So he drags her into the Waldorf Astoria, an iconic hotel, which is currently closed for refurbishment. I was for 5 years.
Oh, inconvenient.
I was sad to report because I do want to go there. It should be open soon, allegedly. But he drags her into the Waldorf and he says, okay, if we pick the same floor, this is meant to be. And they both get into separate lifts and they do pick the same floor, but some little shite dressed as the devil gets in and presses all the buttons. Now, I would have had a stroke if I was John Cusack's Jonathan. but he's like nice to the child. And he, between floors, he obviously ends up telling them the story, because when they're rushing out at each floor, he has an entourage.
Yeah, so good, wasn't it?
And she's kind of sitting there waiting for him, and then she gives up, and then she's gone. And it's so sad, because this is the whole opening scene. Like, this is, you know, the credits haven't even properly rolled at this point.
And I did think to myself, I think I would have picked floor 23 as well.
Really? Why?
Yeah, 23 is my birthday.
22 is mine. Oh.
Are you January?
Yeah. Oh my God, sisters!
I know. This is why we get on so
we're
well.
Aquarians, yeah.
So yeah, I would have picked 23 as well, and I was devastated that it was meant to be, but obviously it was the wrong time.
The devil child. He was literally dressed as the devil, and there was no reason. It was Christmas. It wasn't Halloween. Like, why is your child dressed as the devil?
Yeah, I didn't notice that he was dressed as the devil.
It's so weird, even his little moustache. But yeah, she gives up and she goes it into the world. And then it says a few years later. Mm-hmm. So we learn eventually it was 7 years later. So it's been a pretty long time. And we're kind of reintroduced to Jonathan at his rehearsal dinner. And he's getting married to a lady called Hallie. And Hallie is played by Bridget Moynihan, who plays Natasha in Sex and the City.
She does. And she's Tom Brady's ex.
She's Tom Brady's ex. Before Giselle, she's the mother of his child. Yes. And she is, she's his wife to be. And what's really interesting to me personally, it's nice and serendipitous as a Sex and the City nerd, Sarah, Kate Beckinsale's Sarah's fella, is Aidan from Sex and the City.
Oh my God, my mind is blown.
Like, it's like the two people that stop Carrie and Big being together are in this film stopping Jonathan and Sarah being together. And also fate and proximity and knowing each other's names. But isn't that funny?
That is crazy.
Weren't there any other actors in the 90s that could have played these people? Yeah. But yes, he is getting married to Hallie, who's gorgeous and young. And yeah, she seems a bit, I don't know, flaky or something. But
yeah, she's just not really noticing that he's not that into her.
Yeah, like I would have been like, what is going on with you, sir? But yeah, she seems just like a beautiful, pretty girl that like he's happy to be marrying. And his best friend, Jeremy Piven, he's like, she's so gorgeous, he's so lucky. And you think that like kind of he has it all figured out, but you see him then picking up a copy of Love in the Time of Cholera and looking for Sarah's number.
Still looking for her all of these years later. And he's in a sort of relationship that it would have been perfect, but when you know, you know. Yeah. And he didn't get that feeling.
He describes Hallie as The Godfather Part 2. He's like, it's a really good movie. Could be better than the original.
Yeah.
But without The Godfather, you can't quite get there. So he's still thinking about Sarah. Sarah, on the other hand, is living in San Francisco, working as a therapist. And when we meet her, she's quite cynical. She's saying, oh, you know, I don't believe in fate. I don't believe there's just one person out there for everyone. And, you know, cop onto yourself, client. And the client is just like, oh. And you're like, oh, wow, this experience has obviously like solidified her kind of opposition to her former theory. And she's gone out with Aidan. And Aidan is a pain in the arse in this film.
Oh my God.
Like, I always fancied Aidan. I was always team Aidan.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh no, I wasn't.
I mean, now I'd be team Big. As an adult, I can appreciate that Chris Noth is right. But when I was younger, do you remember when Aidan came back and he was really sexy? He put his hair and he was like kind of mean to her because she cheated on him and stuff. I was like, yes,
yeah,
Aidan.
He kind of like grew up a little bit.
He was less country bumpkin. Whereas in Serendipity, he's playing this musician who plays this Indian flute. And he's very narcissistic straight off the bat. Yeah. He proposes to her and then moments later is like, I have to tell my manager so we can, you know, stick in the honeymoon between the tour dates.
Do you know what I thought when I saw him on screen? I was like, he's given gurus a bad name.
He is. He is. Who else gives gurus a bad name? There are plenty.
Yeah.
But he's like this like spiritual white guy who's playing this Indian music and is apparently quite successful at it.
Yeah. And she just does not seem like it's clicking with her either.
She just seems like she's going along with it. Like he seems quite romantic. The proposal's romantic but she's just like, yeah, sure. The ring doesn't fit her. And to old her, that would have been a red flag. Yes. She would have been like, this isn't right. He doesn't, you know, the moment isn't right. It's not fate. So, but you're thinking, look, you know, if she's happy, she's happy. And then you realise that she is still looking at every $5 bill that comes her way to see if his name and number is on it.
Have you ever experienced anything like that in Ireland, like writing down your number and giving it or anything like that?
No, but you know, in Ireland, like you come back to you within like 2 days.
Yeah. Or your cousin would know them.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'd be your cousin. Like, they'd be your second cousin once removed. Like, Ireland's too small for this shit.
Yeah.
Like, New York has what, 8 million people? Like, yeah, it's a beautiful like story. It hooks you from the get-go, I think. This the possibility, the hope.
Yeah.
But also you might never see them again.
I know. And you're kind of hanging on the edge of your seat at this point, because you're like, well, maybe it could just twist and he does get married and there is no happy ending.
Exactly. And like the two of them are now in a position where they're both getting married, and classic America, they're both getting married like in a day. You know, she's getting married in 3 weeks or something, and so you can see that she is having second thoughts. Your man's a bit absent, she's a bit absent-minded, she feels herself going a bit mad, so she's like, I think I need to go to New York.
Yeah.
And she kind of tricks her best friend, played by Molly Shannon, into accompanying her on what's meant to be a girls' weekend. But in reality, she wants to go and see if the universe is going to bring them back together. I think that's terrible. Like, if you're getting married, you shouldn't, like, I guess that's the whole point. You shouldn't be thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, and it's the whispers, isn't it? And like I've covered this exact topic so many times on The Good Glow, in terms of women who are engaged, and often the engagement is ended not by them.
Choice, yeah.
So they didn't choose to end the engagement, but in hindsight, they connect to those whispers that they were having beforehand, and they're like, it was never meant to be.
Yeah, actually, the episode she did with Dominique Nugent, like, she then went back to someone she'd known before, and now they're madly in love and married.
And it was always meant to be.
It was always meant to be. So that's what I mean. I do believe in fate, but I do believe that like life gets in the way.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of twists and turns you make that make your journey more easy or more difficult, I guess.
And sometimes it does have to get harder before it gets better.
Oh, it's so romantic. But you can understand why, especially him, that he's still kind of obsessed with her, because you know, it was his lift that was interrupted. It was, you know, he was the one that missed out. She was there waiting on him, and he never arrived. Yeah. So you just kind of think. He also gives her a great line on this one evening that they spend together in New York, that the freckles on her arms look like the constellation Cassiopeia.
Oh. Very sophisticated.
I don't know about you, but I've never seen a star in New York City.
No.
You can't even see them here.
Yeah, all the buildings are just blocking
and
the sky.
Clouds and the smog, and like, you can't see stars there. But it's a great line, and she's never forgotten it. She looks at her freckly arms and is like, Cassiopeia. I mean, it's extremely romantic. But there's a few great quotes throughout. The Godfather Part 2 is one of my favourites, but his friend Jeremy Piven is trying to make him feel better. And he said, look, British women don't age well. They go from baby spice to old spice.
Wow.
I know, it's harsh, but like, it's only 7 years as well, lads, come on.
Yeah.
But he's trying to make him feel better. He's like, look, this woman's a pipe dream. Hallie's your reality. Hallie's amazing. Marry Hallie. But there's just something in Jonathan that just won't let him give in to this life he has planned for himself.
And I appreciated that kind of narrative in the movie, which was the supportive best friend.
Yes.
And Jeremy Piven just like giving all of himself to Jonathan and trying to protect him, but then also bringing him on a journey and just loving him for who he was.
My friends would have me committed, or they would like rat on me to the fella. They'd be like, this one is going on a wild goose chase to try and find her ex. Like, my friends would just be like, what are you doing?
I know. But that's what we love about rom-coms, is that anything is possible.
The suspension of disbelief and just giving in. Like, at one point, they're meant to be on his bachelor party, but they fly from New York to San Francisco overnight. Now, the time difference just about, makes sense. But, he gets his friend to go along with him. Her friend is a bit more resistant. Her friend is like, bitch, what are you up to?
And you know what? We're so similar in terms of how we like to watch TV and the scenes that we like. I love a good airplane scene.
Oh, yeah.
On a film.
Yes.
Even in The Housewives, when they skip the airplane bit, I'm like, guys, I need to see what they're drinking, what they're ordering, who they're sitting beside, what they're wearing. Are they sleeping? Like, these are the details I need.
Often.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. In the early seasons, they did a lot of they got the cameras into first class. Yes. Whereas now you might get a bit of iPhone footage. But yeah, like Kristen Wiig and Bridesmaids. Brilliant airplane scene.
Good.
Yeah, no, they're really, really good. Even like Die Hard 2 is basically half a rom-com, I would say. It's about love. Yeah. And that's all set in a plane at Christmas time.
Yeah,
so
Home Alone.
The plane. Yeah. Kevin! Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. So, yes, he is actually being a bit more of a sleuth and a detective in this. So he's actually looking for clues. He's trying to find her. He goes so far as he still has the glove. So you see him in the apartment with the glove. Now, that feels a bit creepy to me. I just feel like he's been cuddling that glove a bit too closely all these years. But he still has it. And when he looks inside it, there's a receipt. And the receipt has her account number at Bloomingdale's. This is where things get stalkery. But he's like, oh, I'll find her. I'll find her through her receipt. And Eugene Levy is used brilliantly as comic relief in this. He's the dad from American Pie and from Schitt's Creek. He's hilarious. And he's the kind of sales clerk that aids and abets him in finding Sarah. And this is how he comes to find out she's in San Francisco and goes to try and... The night before his wedding, like stuff like that really stresses me out.
Totally. Just time differences.
Just break it off with her.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
God.
And do you know what? I really loved that scene with the dad from American Pie, because I'd love to be like standing there when they're filming that. Because I'd say there was improv, like it was very funny.
I'd say they're trying not to piss themselves because like stuff like that, even, you know, when you're watching 30 Rock and it's so funny and you're like, they're definitely laughing. You can see them laughing. Like that happens a couple of times in this film. But basically he comes to kind of a dead end. He goes to San Francisco and he thinks that he sees her sister having sex and he thinks that's her. And he's like, right. I love the way that's what makes him give up.
Yeah.
Not
come all
his
this
wedding.
way.
Yeah. It's her riding some fella. He's like, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah. It was kind of a bit of a curveball, all right.
Yeah. And he's already decided to go home and call off the wedding. But like, you think he would have called it off before he made the journey across the country, which is like a 6-hour flight and a 3-hour time difference.
Yeah,
you know?
insane. Do you know what I loved, Vicky? I loved that he called off the wedding anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you kind of have to at that point.
You do.
You couldn't
absolutely.
stand up and say I do.
But even though he thought that she had moved on, he still called off the wedding, which means I think that you really want something where you really know what you want. Yeah, I agree. And it's taken him that wild goose chase to kind of come to that realization, but he does come to it. And it's when is it that he gets the book? He gets the book as a wedding gift from his fiancée, and it is the book. Yeah. She has seen him looking at it in secondhand shops, and it's the book with Sarah Thomas and her phone number inside. And that's when he's like, I have to give it. That's why he goes cross country. But then when he sees her having sex, he's like, no, I'm done. I'm out of here.
I'm out. But yes, he does call off the wedding. She has called off her wedding to Gormless Aidan, and his instrument is called a shanai, which I'd never heard of before.
No, me neither.
But it is like an Indian flute. So she's called off the wedding. She's decided that she's got it's Jonathan or nobody as well. And yeah, she goes into the empty ballroom and she said, have I missed it? And he said, the old man says, it never happened, honey, you got called off. And one of the weird things is, which is great writing, her friend, played by Molly Shannon, actually knows the bride and gets invited to the wedding.
Oh, so good. There were so many little kind of ways in which they could have crossed paths.
They actually, the same Dalmatian tangles them both up in his lead. Did you notice that?
No.
Yeah, there's loads of little things. They cross each other on the street. Like, because it's been 7 years, you know, they're not, she's changed her hair. In the beginning, her hair is very frizzy. At this point, she has a poker stripe bob. But they keep passing each other. They keep missing each other by mere moments. Wow. And then her friend, she's about to go home to to San Francisco, and she goes to buy a pair of headphones on the plane, and she gets the $5 bill. And she's like, I have to find him. This has to be it. It's quite beautiful. Like, for me, I felt really happy watching this film. Yeah. Even though there's lots of deceit.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. If you go really deep into it, it's, you know, not great. But when you think about, I suppose, manifesting, and we all talk about manifesting now, and it's a name, or it's a phrase that kind of it riles some people up. Some people really believe in it. I feel like it's just such a hot topic at the moment. But with manifesting, how you really manifest is you want a certain outcome, but you have to do the work to get there. Of
course. You can't just go, I wish.
Exactly. Yeah. And in this film, we see how to manifest. So you don't just sit back and wait for Sarah to come back into your life. You have to do the work. You have to
stalk her
to
bring your fiance's back the day before your wedding. But it works. It does work. And how they actually are brought back together is interesting, because she has been to Central Park. She sat on the bench where they sat and he talked about her freckles, and she's left her jacket there. Now, I would consider that jacket lost to New York City.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I'd be like, some homeless person is using that now and they need it more than I do. And I don't want that back because there's, you know, a bird might have shat on it, basically. Yeah. But she's like, oh, I must go and get my jacket back. And she goes and he's there in the bench. So he's also been, you know, he's kind of given up and he's going back there to remember the fateful moment, and they're there. Also, inexplicably throughout, they're not wearing jackets when it's snowing in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's lying on the ice,
Yes.
but it's such a moment of pure surrender.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to surrender in order to pass through and to really get what you want and what the universe has waiting for you.
And do you mean by that, like, just like breathe out and just, give in?
Yeah, or sometimes we hold things too tightly. I remember when I actually was leaving my job in radio, I had the potential to get another really big gig, right? And I kept saying to the people that I work with, like, am I going to get the job? Am I going to get the job? Do you think that's going to happen? No word yet, no word yet, no word yet. And in the meantime, I was just getting the urge more and more and more to quit my job. Like, just, you have to leave despite getting this other job.
Been there, girl. Yeah.
So I went in and I handed in my notice, and that's when I knew in my heart and soul that it was the right decision for me, because there was no external factors.
Right.
And 4 hours later, the call came and I got the other job. But the most important thing for me was that I had to have nothing
Right.
to leave. And that's what this film kind of reminds me of a little bit, is when you don't hold things too tightly and you surrender and you let the universe work for you, it's going to bring you to the place where you were always supposed to be.
Wow.
Is that too deep?
No, I love it.
Okay.
You brought a tear to my eye. I know, I love it. I agree as well. Like, did you take the other job?
I did.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And it gave me such security for a couple of years. And eventually then I went fully out on my own. But it's funny, isn't it?
It is.
How
I've been there. I've been there a couple of times, most recently when I left my job in publishing, and, you know, no idea what was going to happen. And you do just kind of have to let go and let God. I'm not religious, but that's the phrase that people use, and just let go and let universe and see what happens. And I'm not someone who believes in manifestation in terms of the I wish.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think a lot of people just expect if they write something down that it will happen.
Yeah.
It's not the case. But I'm a huge believer in fate in the universe and just putting things out there.
And speaking of gasps, actually, when we had a little gasp a couple of moments ago, did you hear the collective gasp when you announced that you were going out on your own?
I did.
mean, it was like
there were all sorts of rumors that I was doing Dancing with the Stars. Which still makes me laugh, because as if they'd want me, first of all, and I'd be awful. I have two left feet.
Amazing.
But I remember, there was, like, there's always, whenever there's a shift in an industry, like, there's always oh God,
yes,
what's she doing? Because you could fail, you know, you could fall flat on your face. But for me anyway, so far, touch wood, it's all been very positive.
And I'd say you've inspired so many people to follow their dream and their passion. Like, I'm subscribed to your newsletter that you send. I love it because it's pure heart and soul.
Thank you.
It's so interesting because you're writing about things that you love, but that's what we need more of in the world is like people having the courage to follow their passions and using it for good.
It's gumption. That's a word that I love. Guts and gumption. And sometimes you have to be in a shitty place to summon your gumption, I think.
Yeah.
It can go one of two ways.
Absolutely.
You know?
And then I loved all of your interviews around your book when you were saying, you know, your dad and Joe, and they were like, oh, this is actually brilliant, this book, or you actually can write.
Yeah, Jesus, shock.
Yeah, I love that.
Then there's always that fear to keep it up. Do you know what I mean? So you're like me, you never stop. Like, you're always doing the next feckin' mountain marathon. Like that.
I know. We need to sit in the moments a little bit more, I think.
Just, like, enjoy the moments. But look, girl, it's working out. It's working out so far. So the cynic in me often wonders, right, at the end of this film, they've got together. What if the sex is bad?
Oh yeah, right. I didn't Sex and the City Part 2.
Yeah.
I was just actually thinking, what film would you hate to be compared to? And that was the one for me, Sex and the City Part 2. I'd hate if someone said I was that film.
Yeah, big as like, oh, I want time off from my marriage.
Yeah.
Terrible, dreadful.
Awful. Yeah, so we're they seem to have good chemistry. I think they'd be okay.
Hopefully.
He's head over heels.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that in so many other rom-coms, like, you know, there's the object of desire and then they finally get together and it's like,
yeah.
Whereas I hope. But there's another Christmas scene right at the end, just to really get the Christmas message home.
Yeah.
With Eugene Levy in the store, and they're back celebrating where they met.
Yeah,
buying
it was
the
like
gloves.
the happy ever after, wasn't it?
Exactly.
I suppose though you're right though, we didn't see that like electric chemistry between them at the end.
I mean, happily ever after is always a very easy finish, right? You know, like when Paul Howard was on the podcast, he was like, I don't think Jerry Maguire stayed with your woman. I think they got divorced very quickly. And I was like, Jesus, oh my God, we don't look beyond the happily ever after here. But in this film, the payoff really should be good because they've gone through so much to get there.
And they both really wanted it.
Yeah, I hope it's decent. But like I said, I felt really happy. It doesn't matter how many times I watch this film, I feel happy at the end of it.
Yeah, it's you summed it up perfectly. 90 minutes.
Yeah.
You can sit down, you can fully commit. It's New York, it's Christmas. Like, who doesn't love New York at Christmas?
Like,
and
crazy
all
people.
the things that are going on. Like, and in a rom-com as well. I like a city rom-com.
So do I. I also like, cities are my fave, but like, you know, like Sweet Home Alabama. I like when the city girl goes home to her roots also.
Yes.
I do enjoy that. But yeah, it's a good city rom-com is hard to beat. Like When Harry Met Sally is New York. It's almost like another character.
Yeah, I think Jamie, like when he sees that I'm kind of having a tough week or you know, I need a bit of TLC, instead of, you know, giving me a massage or bringing me on a nice night out, he'll say, do you want to watch a rom-com? Because he knows that I'll just fully get into it and enjoy it.
Well, that was the whole point of this podcast. I was like, for ages I was like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Because I knew I wanted to do something. And then I was like, hang on, you love rom-coms. They're your comfort. They're your, you know, when you're sad or sick or tired, that's what you want to do. You want a happy ending. That sounds really bad. But it's true. You want a fairy tale ending, shall we say. But then I was like, duh, everyone loves rom-coms. So it's like comfort and coziness and sweetness and, you know.
Well, thank you for bringing us back to all of these amazing films.
You're the best. So how many cheesy popcorns out of 5 would you give Serendipity?
5. 100%.
Can we give it 7.5? That's what I want to give it. With a sprig of mistletoe as well in there. Thank you so much, Georgie. You're an absolute angel and it's great to see you. And Merry Christmas.
Ooh.